That night, in his modest quarters on Nexus Prime, Joe activated a concealed communication device. It resembled a standard data tablet, but actually connected to a covert network extending all the way to Earth. He typed rapidly, "Invasion fleet, 200,000 ships. Departure, 7 days. Hive mind species commanding. They suspect nothing about our true capabilities. We'll attempt to avoid fleet deployment, but if captured, trust one will assist from inside. Earth must prepare. This will be our greatest test." After transmitting the message, Joe destroyed the communication device and began preparing for what might be his final week on Nexus Prime. The aliens believed they were dispatching an overwhelming force to crush a primitive world. But Joe knew the truth that would soon shock the entire galaxy. Earth was ready for them. Earth had always been ready. And the aliens who arrived expecting an easy conquest were about to discover why no invasion fleet had ever returned. The humans were waiting, and they had learned much from the previous 3 fleets that had disappeared near their world. Soon, the Galactic Council would understand that there were fates far more transformative than destruction. And sometimes, the greatest victory came from showing enemies a better way to live. But first, Earth would need to survive the largest invasion in galactic history. And Joe would need to find a way to help his people, while surrounded by their enemies. Commander Park Salmon stood in the subterranean command center beneath Sol, monitoring dozens of displays showing the dark space surrounding Earth. To most humans on the surface, space appeared empty and peaceful. But Salmon knew better. 3 alien invasion fleets had already attempted to conquer her world, and a 4th approached. "Commander, we just received Joe's transmission," Captain Lee Juno reported, approaching quickly with a data tablet. 200,000 ships this time. Hive mind species. Salmon nodded calmly. She had anticipated this escalation. Each invasion force had been progressively larger, and the aliens were growing desperate. Any indication whether Joe will be forced to join their fleet? He's attempting to avoid it, but the hive mind admiral wants him as a translator. Then we plan for the possibility he'll be aboard one of their vessels, Salmon stated. "Alert all stations. Initiate Operation Welcome Home." The command center erupted into coordinated activity as officers contacted secret bases throughout the solar system. What the aliens didn't comprehend was that humans had been preparing for galactic contact for over 50 years. Ever since the first scout ships had been detected at the edge of the solar system, Earth had been constructing its defenses. Dr. Kim Tae-woo entered the command center carrying several data tablets. As Earth's chief scientist for alien technology, he had been exceptionally busy recently. "Commander, the analysis of the 3rd Fleet is complete. We've successfully integrated Nexus collected technology with our existing systems." "Show me," Salmon requested. Tae-woo activated a holographic display depicting the solar system. Hundreds of red dots materialize around Earth, Mars, and the asteroid belt. These represent our current positions. 50,000 ships from the Helix Armada, 75,000 from the Soros Warfleet, and 30,000 from the Nexus Collective, all now under human command. Salmon smiled. The aliens believed their fleets had been destroyed. But the truth was far more interesting. Humans hadn't destroyed the invasion forces. They had captured them. Every ship, every crew member, every piece of technology now formed part of Earth's expanding fleet. "How many of the alien crew members have completed integration?" Salmon asked. 85% of the Helix survivors have joined us willingly, reported Yunmira, head of the intelligence division. They were astonished that we treated their wounded and provided sustenance to their prisoners. The Soros took longer to trust us, but 90% are now serving alongside human crews. The Nexus collective artificial intelligences were the easiest. Once we demonstrated our philosophy of cooperation, instead of conquest, they chose to assist us immediately. This was humanity's secret weapon. Other species in the galaxy fought wars by annihilating their enemies. Humans fought wars by transforming enemies into friends. It was a strategy so alien to galactic thinking that no one anticipated it. What about their home worlds? Salmon inquired. We've established covert contact with resistance movements on all 3 planets, Mira replied. Many of their populations are exhausted by endless wars of conquest. When we offer them the opportunity to join a peaceful alliance instead, most respond positively. The main screen displayed a tactical representation of the approaching hive mind fleet. 200,000 ships arranged in perfect formation, advancing toward Earth like a mechanical storm. They'll arrive in 6 days, reported Admiral Choi Hyun-woo, who now commanded the captured Helix vessels. Choi had been a human naval officer before the first invasion, but he had adapted quickly to commanding crystal-based alien technology. Should we move our fleets into position? Not yet, Salmon said. Let them approach. We want them to observe Earth as it truly is before we reveal our actual strength. Captain Kong Dian approached the command group. She was one of Earth's finest pilots and had been training mixed human-alien squadrons for months. Commander, the integrated crews are ready for combat. The aliens who join us are eager to prove their loyalty. Good. But remember, our objective isn't to destroy the hive mind fleet. Our objective is to save them. This was what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. Where others saw enemies to be eliminated, humans saw people who could be helped. The galaxy was filled with species forced into military service by their governments. Many of them had never chosen to be conquerors. They were simply following orders because they knew no alternative. Dr. Shin Woo-jin entered the command center with his team of xenopsychologists. His responsibility was understanding alien minds and developing communication methods with species that thought very differently from humans. Commander, we've completed our analysis of hive mind psychology, Woo-jin reported. Their collective consciousness makes them extremely difficult to communicate with individually, but we've identified a potential vulnerability. Explain. The hive mind believes that individual thought represents weakness, but our studies indicate that many of them have suppressed personal desires and dreams. If we can awaken their individual consciousness even briefly, some may choose to break free from collective. Salmon considered this. It would be the most challenging conversion they had ever attempted. The previous alien fleets had been composed of individuals capable of making personal choices. The hive mind was fundamentally different. They literally shared one consciousness across millions of beings. What do you need? Time, Woo-jin said, and close contact. We'll need to capture some of their ships intact and begin the process immediately. Can it be done during battle? We believe so, but it will require perfect coordination between our military and psychological teams. Salmon looked around the command center at her team. Humans, Helix crystals, Soros reptiles, and Nexus artificial intelligences all working together. 6 months ago, these beings had been enemies. Now they were family. Begin final preparations, she ordered. Contact all fleet commanders. Remind them of the mission parameters. We protect Earth. We capture as many enemy ships as possible, and we save as many lives as we can. No unnecessary destruction. What about the possibility that DeJoe is on one of their ships? Juno asked. Then we make sure his ship is one of the first we capture, Salmon replied. No human gets left behind, and no new ally gets abandoned. As the command center prepared for the largest battle in human history, Salmon thought about how much Earth had changed since the first invasion. What had started as desperate defense had become something far more significant. Earth was no longer just protecting itself. It was offering hope to species across the galaxy. The aliens come and conquer Earth believed they were facing a primitive world with simple weapons. They had no idea they were about to encounter something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that fought not for conquest, but for the radical idea that every being deserved freedom, peace, and the right to choose their own destiny. In 6 days, the hive mind fleet would reach Earth expecting an easy victory. Instead, they would discover that some things were worth fighting for, and some battles were won not by destroying enemies, but by showing them a better way to live. The question wasn't whether Earth could survive the invasion. The question was how many of the invaders Earth could save from their own dark fate. The hive mind fleet emerged from hyperspace like a mechanical nightmare. 200,000 ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Each vessel positioned at precisely the same distance from its neighbors. Admiral Theck stood on the flagship's bridge, his forearms moving in precise coordination as he received data from the collective consciousness. Target world confirmed, He announced to his bridge crew, though the words were unnecessary. Every being in the fleet already knew what he knew, thought what he thought. Terra, 3 appears undefended. No ships detected in orbit. No energy signatures indicating major weapon systems. In the translation booth behind the bridge, Dejoe sat quietly, attempting to appear bored. The hive mind had indeed forced him to join their fleet, but they treated him like equipment rather than a person. This gave him opportunities to observe their operations without being closely monitored. Through the ship's viewports, Dejoe could see his homeworld. Earth looked beautiful and peaceful, exactly as the aliens expected. But he knew that appearances could be profoundly deceiving. Begin standard invasion formation, Dex commanded. Deploy screening vessels to eliminate any hidden defenses. Prepare landing craft for surface assault. The fleet began moving toward Earth in waves. The first group consisted of 10,000 scout ships designed to reveal any surprises before the main force attacked. The second wave comprised 50,000 heavy cruisers with sufficient firepower to destroy continents. Behind them came the troop transports and the massive flagship. Dejoe watched the tactical display, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. The hive mind had brought an overwhelming force, but they had no comprehension of what they truly faced. As the scout ships approached Earth's moon, something unexpected occurred. Instead of being attacked, they were scanned by invisible sensors that mapped every detail of their construction, crew composition, and weapon systems. The scanning was so sophisticated that the ship's computers didn't even detect it. Admiral Choi Hyunwoo floated in his command ship, concealed behind one of Jupiter's moons. His vessel looked exactly like a Helix crystal ship, because it was a Helix crystal ship, captured 8 months ago and now operated by a mixed human-alien crew. Analysis complete, reported his science officer, a former Helix warrior named Crystal Song of Victory, who now went by the human name Victory. All hive mind vessels utilize the same basic design. Identical vulnerabilities in their shield generators and communication arrays. Understood, Choi replied. Signal all fleet groups. Begin Operation Awakening. Across the solar system, human and alien crews prepare for a battle unlike any the galaxy had ever witnessed. This wouldn't be a simple fight between enemies. This would be an attempt to free an entire species from their own mental prison. Captain Kong Dian led a squadron of mixed fighters toward the hive mind scouts. Her wingmates included human pilots, former Soros warriors, Helix crystals, and Nexus artificial intelligences, all flying captured ships that had been modified with the best technology from all 4 species. Remember the mission, she broadcast to her squadron. Disable, don't destroy. Target their communication arrays first. We want to break their connection to the collective consciousness, not kill them. The first contact came as a surprise to the hive mind scouts. Instead of energy weapons designed to destroy, they were hit with electromagnetic pulses that shut down their communication systems. Suddenly, for the first time in their lives, individual hive mind soldiers found themselves alone with their own thoughts. What is happening? One of the scout pilots whispered himself, not realizing that the words came from his own mind rather than the collective. The feeling was terrifying and wonderful simultaneously. More human ships appeared, but instead of attacking the disabled scouts, they transmitted a simple message. You are safe. We will not hurt you. You have choices now. Think for yourself. On the hive mind flagship, Admiral Thex felt a disturbance in the collective consciousness. Some of his scouts were no longer connected to the shared mind. Impossible, he said aloud. The collective cannot be broken. But it was happening. As more scout ships were isolated from the group mind, more individual consciousnesses began to emerge. Some panicked and tried to restore their connection. Others felt curious about the strange new experience of being alone in their own thoughts. Dr. Shin Woo-jin watched from his medical ship as the first captured hive mind soldiers were brought aboard. His team of psychologists was ready with a treatment they had developed specifically for collective consciousness species. Hello, he said gently to the first prisoner, an insect-like being who was trembling with fear. My name is Woo-jin. What is your name? The crystalline halls of Nexus Prime thrummed with voices raised in frustration. High Commander Velter materialized at the center of the Galactic Council chamber, his translucent azure form pulsing with barely contained anger. Around him, delegates from dozens of alien civilizations engaged in heated debate over the same crisis that had plagued them for months. 3 invasion armadas had vanished near a modest blue world designated Terra 3. Not decimated in battle, not obliterated. Simply erased from existence. This defies all logic, Admiral Kixara growled, her reptilian scales darkening to a deep crimson. My Soros war fleet comprised 75,000 vessels, the most advanced weaponry our civilization has ever produced. How does an entire armada simply cease to exist? Velter's crystalline digits drummed an anxious rhythm against a metallic conference surface. Your fleet wasn't the first casualty, Admiral. Prior to your deployment, the Helix Armada dispatched 50,000 ships to claim that planet. They never transmitted a single status report. No distress beacons, no debris fields, nothing whatsoever. In the chamber's corner, a young man occupied a translation station, his attention seemingly focused on his linguistic duties. His name was DeJoe, and his official capacity was that of a communications specialist facilitating dialogue between disparate species. None of the assembled delegates suspected that beneath his unremarkable human appearance existed something unprecedented in their galactic experience, a citizen of the very world they discussed. DeJoe maintained a carefully neutral expression as he monitored the aliens' deliberations about his homeworld. His assignment involved language translation, but today he absorbed intelligence far more critical. Earth faced an existential threat. What of the Nexus collective deployment? Inquired a towering insectoid representative of the hive mind species. Their cybernetic vessels operated under artificial intelligence control. Machines lacked capacity for fear or psychological manipulation that afflicts organic life forms. 30,000 AI-controlled craft, Velter responded grimly, disappeared with the same completeness. The computational systems transmitted no final data packets before vanishing. It's as though they simply stopped existing the instant they achieved proximity to Terra 3. An uneasy silence descended upon the chamber. Throughout their millennia of galactic expansion, nothing comparable had ever occurred. The Council administered millions of worlds across the galaxy. When they identified a planet for acquisition, they claimed it. Species that mounted resistance were crushed. The system functioned efficiently and predictably. But Terra 3 represented an anomaly. Perhaps the humans possessed some manner of advanced weapons technology, suggested a slug-like creature representing the Mollusk Federation, something capable of complete molecular disintegration, leaving no physical evidence. Kixara emitted a harsh, skeptical laugh. Impossible. Our reconnaissance units have monitored Terra 3 for years. The humans barely possess rudimentary space travel capabilities. They wage wars using chemical propellants and kinetic projectiles. They're technological primitives. DeJoe suppressed the urge to contradict them, to defend his species' capabilities. But he remained silent, maintaining his cover. His mission demanded information gathering, not self-revelation. Still, hearing his people dismissed as primitive caused his hands to clench into tight fists beneath the translation console. Whether they concealed their true technological advancement, another voice proposed. Some civilizations appear vulnerable while maintaining sophisticated defensive capabilities. We've conducted comprehensive planetary scans, Velter stated. No energy shields, no orbital weapons platforms, no space-based fortifications. Just a species that hasn't even established colonies within their own solar system. Yet somehow they're making our fleets vanish without a trace. The debate continued for hours. DeJoe listened intently. His apparent translation notes actually constituting intelligence reports destined for Earth. The aliens were frightened, and frightened beings frequently made catastrophically poor decisions. Finally, Velter called for order. We cannot allow this mystery to persist. 3 fleets have disappeared, making us appear vulnerable to our adversaries. Other galactic powers are beginning to question our military supremacy. What do you propose? Kixara asked. A 4th invasion force. But this time, we deploy overwhelming numerical superiority. The Hive Mind Collective has volunteered to lead an armada of 200,000 ships, Velter announced. The insectoid representative clicked its mandibles in affirmation. Our collective consciousness cannot be confused or deceived like individual minds. We will determine what happened to the previous fleets and claim Terra 3 for the Council. DeJoe felt ice crystallize in his veins. 200,000 ships, 4 times larger than any previous invasion force. Even with Earth's concealed defenses, could they withstand such overwhelming numbers? Excellent, Velter declared. Admiral Thex, your hive mind fleet departs in 7 standard cycles. This time, failure is not acceptable. As the council session concluded, aliens began filing from the chamber. DeJoe gathered his translation equipment slowly, his mind racing through contingencies. He needed to warn Earth immediately, but he also required more intelligence about the hive mind's tactical plans. Admiral Thex approached the station. The insectoid stood nearly 3 meters tall, possessing 4 articulated arms and multifaceted eyes that seemed to perceive everything simultaneously. Human, Thex stated, using the translation device mounted on his thorax. You've been remarkably quiet today. DeJoe's heartbeat accelerated dangerously. Did the alien suspect his true identity? I'm simply here to facilitate linguistic communication, Admiral. Military strategy lies outside my expertise. Interesting. Your species fascinates the collective. Tell me, what knowledge do you possess about Terra 3? Dangerous territory. DeJoe needed to tread carefully. Only what I've heard in these sessions, sir. It sounds like a problematic situation for the Council. Thex studied him with those terrible compound eyes. Indeed, but soon the problem will be resolved. The hive mind doesn't fail like other species. We think as one unified consciousness, act with perfect coordination, and conquer with absolute efficiency. Whatever deception the humans of Terra 3 are employing, it will prove ineffective against us. I'm certain you're correct, Admiral. DeJoe responded carefully. You will accompany us, Thex announced abruptly. We may require translation services when encountering the Terra 3 humans. Your knowledge of primitive languages could prove useful. DeJoe felt panic surge through his chest, but maintained vocal control. Of course, Admiral. I serve the Council. As Thex departed, DeJoe quickly finished packing his equipment. He had 7 days before the largest invasion fleet in galactic history departed for Earth. 7 days to transmit a warning and somehow avoid boarding the ship that would attack his own homeworld. I am Unit 7742 Beta. Scout function, the being replied automatically. That's what they called you. But what do you want to be called? The question was so alien that the former hive mind soldier couldn't understand at first. No one had ever asked what he wanted before. I don't know. That's okay. You have time to think about it. Would you like to see something beautiful while you decide? Wu Jin activated a holographic display, showing Earth from space. Cities glowing in the darkness. Oceans reflecting starlight. Clouds swirling in complex patterns. This is our world. We call it Earth. Every person who lives there chose their own name, their own job, their own dreams. The former hive mind soldier stared at the image. Chose? You mean? They decided for themselves. Yes, and now you can too. Meanwhile, the battle was expanding throughout the solar system. The hive mind fleet found itself fighting an enemy that seemed to know exactly how they would attack. Every tactical move was predicted and countered. Every formation was met with a perfect response. But the strangest thing was that the enemy seemed more interested in capturing ships than destroying them. Hive mind vessels that lost power were quickly surrounded by human ships that offered help instead of delivering final attacks. Surrender your ship and you will be treated with respect, came the broadcast on all frequencies. Join us and discover what it means to be free. Admiral Thex was beginning to panic. Though he tried to hide it from collective, his perfect formation was falling apart as more and more ships lost contact with the group mind. Worse, some of his soldiers were choosing to surrender rather than fight to the death. This is impossible, he repeated. No species surrenders willingly to an inferior enemy. But Thex was learning that humans weren't inferior, just different. They fought with strategies that no military academy in the galaxy taught. They used psychology as a weapon. They turned weakness into strength and enemies into allies. As the battle continued, something unprecedented happened. A group of hive mind ships suddenly turned and began attacking their own fleet. The soldiers on those vessels had made a choice. They had decided to fight for the humans who offered them freedom instead of the collective that offered them only obedience. Joe watched from the flagship as the hive mind formation collapsed. Individual ships were breaking away from the fleet, some to surrender, others to join the human side. The collective consciousness was fragmenting as thousands of beings experienced individual thought for the first time. "Admiral," one of the bridge officers said nervously, "perhaps we should retreat and request reinforcements." Thex turned to stare at the officer with compound eyes that showed more emotion than any hive mind should possess. "Did you just suggest a course of action on your own?" The officer suddenly realized what had happened. Cut off from a collective by the chaos of battle, he had begun thinking for himself. I think I did." "Then you are no longer one of us," Thex said. But there was sadness in his voice rather than anger. As the battle raged around Earth, it became clear that the humans were winning not through superior firepower, but through superior compassion. They were fighting a war not to destroy their enemies, but to free them, and they were succeeding beyond their wildest dreams. The question was no longer whether Earth would survive the invasion. The question was how many hive mind soldiers would choose freedom over the safety of the collective consciousness. The massive hive mind command ship drifted quietly in space, its engines disabled and its weapons offline. Admiral Thex sat in a small room that humans called Medical Bay, staring at his four hands as if seeing them for the first time. Around him, soft music played from hidden speakers, something the humans called classical music, supposed to help with relaxation. For the first time in his entire life, Thex was alone with his own thoughts. Dr. Shin Woo-jin entered the room slowly, carrying a chair that he placed across from the alien admiral. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently. "I don't understand the question," Thex replied. His voice was different now, uncertain instead of commanding. "The collective always told us what we felt. Now there is only emptiness." "Not emptiness," Woo-jin said. "Freedom. It takes time to learn how to use it." Through the small window, Thex could see Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. "Your world is very beautiful," he said, surprising himself by speaking without being asked a direct question. "Thank you. Would you like to know more about it?" This was the beginning of what humans called the integration protocol. Over the past 18 months, they had developed a careful process for helping former enemies become allies. It wasn't forced conversion or brainwashing. It was simply showing beings what life would be like when they had choices. In another part of the ship, Bei Sango was meeting with a group of former hive mind soldiers. Sango had once been a prisoner of war himself, captured during Earth's early conflicts with alien scouts. His experience of being freed and choosing to stay with his former captors made him uniquely qualified to help others through the same process. "I know you're scared," he told a group of insect-like beings. "When I first became separated from my military unit, I felt lost and alone. But then I learned that being alone doesn't mean being lonely." One of the former soldiers raised a tentative hand. "What's the difference?" "Being alone means you can think your own thoughts. Being lonely means you have no one to share those thoughts with. Here, you will never be lonely again." To demonstrate, Sango activated a communication screen that showed dozens of other former hive mind soldiers who had been integrated over the past few days. They were working alongside humans, learning new skills, and discovering personal interests they never knew they had. Unit 5539 Gamma, Engineering Function, has decided to call herself Builder, Sango explained. She discovered that she loves creating things instead of just following engineering orders. Unit 2847 Alpha, Combat Specialist, chose the name piece and is now studying human art. The watching soldiers were amazed. They had never imagined that their fellow hive mind members could become so different, so individual, so happy. Meanwhile, in Earth's Orbital Command Center, Hyunsu was coordinating the largest cultural exchange program in galactic history. As Earth's chief cultural ambassador, her job was to help newly freed aliens understand human society and find their place in it. "We have 17,000 former hive mind individuals now in various stages of integration," she reported to Commander Salmon. Most are progressing well, but some are having difficulty adjusting to individual choice. What kind of difficulties? Salmon asked. Some want to make all their decisions by committee because they're afraid of being wrong. Others are overwhelmed by having too many options. A few have asked if they can return to the collective consciousness. This was expected. Freedom wasn't easy for beings who had never experienced it before. Some former slaves preferred the safety of servitude to the responsibility of choice. But humans had learned patience in dealing with such cases. What about the ones who want to return? We let them, Yunsa said simply. Choice includes a right to choose poorly. But we also make sure they understand what they're giving up. In the command ship's detention area, which looked more like a comfortable hotel than a prison, Admiral Thex was learning about human history. Dr. Wu Jin showed him images of Earth's past, wars and peace, slavery and freedom, dictatorships and democracies. Your species has fought many wars, Thex observed. Yes, but we learn from them. We discover that the strongest societies are built on cooperation, not control. The Galactic Council teaches that individual will lead to chaos and conflict. Sometimes it does, Wu Jin admitted, but also leads to art, music, literature, science, and love. Are those things worth the risk of occasional conflict? Thex considered this. In the collective consciousness, there had never been art because there were no individual perspectives to express. There had never been music because there were no personal emotions to convey. There had never been love because there were no separate beings to care about each other. I think I would like to learn about love, Thex said quietly. That can be arranged. But first, you need to learn about yourself. What do you enjoy? What makes you curious? What do you want to do with your life? These questions were revolutionary to a being who had never made a personal decision. But slowly, carefully, Thex began to discover that he enjoyed looking at stars, that he was curious about how different species communicated, and that he wanted to learn more about the humans who had freed him across the solar system. Similar conversations were happening on hundreds of ships. Former Helix soldiers were teaching newer prisoners about the joy of individual expression. Ex-Soros warriors were explaining the satisfaction of choosing one's own battles. Converted Nexus artificial intelligences were demonstrating how creativity flourished when freed from rigid programming. The integration process wasn't just about changing minds. It was about healing souls. Many of the alien soldiers had been forced into military service by governments that cared nothing for their personal happiness. Others had been conditioned from birth to believe that obedience was the highest virtue. The hardest part, explained Dr. Kim Tae-woo to a group of human medics, is helping them understand that they deserve happiness. Most have never been told that their personal feelings matter. How do we convince them? We show them. Every kindness we demonstrate, every choice we offer, every time we ask for their opinion instead of ordering them around. It all adds up. Eventually, they begin to believe that they are valuable as individuals. Some of the integration successes were remarkable. Former hive mind engineers were designing new technologies that combine the efficiency of collective thinking with the creativity of individual inspiration. Ex-soldiers were developing new strategies for peaceful conflict resolution. Artists were creating works that expressed the joy of newfound freedom. But the most important success was happening in the command ship's medical bay. Admiral Thex had just experienced his first dream. In the collective consciousness, sleep was a shared experience with no personal visions. But alone in his own mind, Thex had dreamed of flying through space, not as a conqueror, but as an explorer, seeking new friends among the stars. I understand now, he told Dr. Wu Jin the next morning. The humans didn't defeat us. You rescued us. Will you help us rescue others? Thex looked out at the stars, thinking of all the species across the galaxy who lived under oppressive governments, who had never been allowed to choose their own destinies, who didn't even know that freedom was possible. Yes, he said firmly, I will help you rescue them all. The integration protocol was working better than anyone had dared to hope. But the real test would come when the converted aliens returned to the galaxy to share what they had learned. Some would be welcomed as heroes who had discovered a better way to live. Others would be branded as traitors by governments that feared losing control over their populations. The revolution was just beginning. 6 months after the Fourth Invasion Fleet had disappeared near Terra 3, the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime buzzed with confusion and fear. High Commander Velter paced nervously in front of the assembled representatives, his crystalline form flickering with anxiety. "This is impossible," he declared for the 100th time. "For invasion fleets. 255,000 ships. All vanished without a trace." But today was different. Today, they had received a message that changed everything. The main display activated, showing a familiar face that made several council members gasp in recognition. It was Joe, the quiet translator who had worked in their chambers for over a year. But now he wore the uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. And he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was Admiral Thex, former commander of the Hivemind invasion fleet. Behind them stood representatives from all 4 species that had attempted to conquer Earth. Helix crystals, Soros reptiles, Nexus artificial intelligences, and Hivemind insects. All were very much alive, and all looked happy. "Greetings, Galactic Council," Joe said in perfect galactic standard. "I am Ambassador Lim Seojun of Earth. Though you knew me by another name, I come before you today with representatives of your missing fleets." The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. Velter slammed his crystalline fist on the podium. "Impossible. Those fleets were destroyed." "No," said a familiar voice. Admiral Kixara stepped forward on the screen, her reptilian scales bright with health and contentment. "Commander Velter, we were not destroyed. We were saved." The word saved echoed through the chamber like a thunderclap. In galactic military terminology, there were only 2 possible outcomes for invasion fleets: victory or destruction. The concept of salvation wasn't part of their vocabulary. "Explain yourself, Admiral," Velter demanded. "Report on the status of your fleet." Kixara smiled, an expression that none of the council members had ever seen on her face before. "My fleet is healthy, well-fed, and serving alongside the humans in Earth's Defense Force. But more importantly, my people are free." Free from what? Free to choose their own destinies. Free to pursue their own interests. Free to be individuals instead of just soldiers in someone else's war. Admiral Thex stepped forward. His 4 arms moved independently now instead of in the synchronized patterns of the collective consciousness. "Commander Velter, I must report that the Hivemind invasion fleet has experienced a fundamental change in mission parameters." "What kind of change?" "We have learned to think as individuals while still cooperating as a group. The humans showed us that the collective consciousness wasn't strength. It was a prison. Now we serve Earth because we choose to, not because we're forced to." The council members began talking loudly among themselves. This was beyond their understanding. How could conquered soldiers choose to serve their conquerors? How could defeated species claim to be free? Ambassador Lim Seojun raised his hand for silence. "Honored council members, I understand your confusion. The galaxy has operated on principles of conquest and domination for so long that you cannot imagine any other way. But we're here to show you that there's a better path." "What do you want?" Velter asked suspiciously. "We want to offer the same choice to every species in the galaxy that we offered to your invasion fleets. The choice to live in peace, to pursue individual happiness, and cooperate with others instead of conquering them." A tall, elegant being from the ethereal republic laughed mockingly. "You expect us to believe that primitive humans defeated our most advanced military forces with philosophy and kindness? Not defeated, corrected a new voice. A Nexus artificial intelligence materialized as a hologram beside the Earth delegation. Elevated. The humans didn't destroy us. They healed us. They showed us what we could become if we were free to choose our own programming." "This is propaganda," Velter declared. "Mind control designed to make us lower our defenses before the real invasion begins." But his words lacked conviction. Deep down, he could see the truth in the faces of the former invasion fleet members. They weren't broken prisoners or brainwashed slaves. They radiated a contentment and purpose that was rare in the galaxy. "If you don't believe us," Seojun said calmly, "then come and see for yourself. Earth extends an open invitation to any species that wishes to send diplomatic missions to our world. Come as observers, not as conquerors. Learn about our way of life. Then decide for yourselves whether what we offer is worth pursuing. The chamber fell silent. An open invitation from a planet that had just neutralized for invasion fleets was either supreme confidence or a trap beyond imagination. What guarantee do we have of safe passage? Asked a representative from the Mollusk Federation. The same guarantee we gave to your invasion fleets, Seojin replied. You will be treated with respect, fed well, housed comfortably, and free to leave whenever you choose. No one will force you to stay, and no one will force you to change your beliefs. Admiral Thex stepped forward again. I have a message from my former collective, he announced. The hive mind worlds have been told that I died in glorious battle. But I am not dead. I am more alive than I have ever been. Individual consciousness is not a weakness to be feared. It is a strength to be celebrated. His words were broadcast across the galaxy, reaching every hive mind world simultaneously. For the first time in their species' history, millions of collective-minded beings heard one of their own advocating for individual thought. My name is no longer Admiral Thex, he continued. I have chosen a new name for my new life. I am now called Freedom, and I invite all my brothers and sisters to discover what that word means. The effect was immediate. On hive mind worlds across the galaxy, individuals began disconnecting from the collective consciousness, not in rebellion, but in curiosity. They wanted to experience what freedom had experienced. Similar messages were broadcast by representatives from all the former invasion fleets. Helix Crystal spoke of discovering art and music. Soros warriors described the joy of choosing their own battles. Nexus artificial intelligences explained how creativity flourished when freed from rigid programming. Velter watched in growing horror as his perfect galactic order began to crumble. This is chaos, he whispered. If everyone chooses their own path, there will be no unity, no order, no control. But there will be happiness, said Sojun. There will be art, science, love, and hope. There will be cooperation born of choice rather than obedience born of fear. In the months that followed, the galaxy transformed in ways no one had imagined possible. Some species embraced Earth's philosophy immediately, sending diplomatic missions that often resulted in entire populations choosing to immigrate to the solar system. Other species resisted, trying to maintain the old ways of conquest and control. But the word had spread too far to be stopped. Across thousands of worlds, beings who had never been asked what they wanted suddenly began asking that question for themselves. Rebellion started not with violence, but with individuals simply choosing to live differently. Earth became a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples throughout the galaxy. The solar system, once a small and insignificant corner of space, became the capital of a new kind of civilization, one based on voluntary cooperation rather than forced submission. The transformation wasn't always smooth. Commander Park Salmon found herself dealing with challenges she had never anticipated during the early days of Earth's defense. Commander, we have a situation developing on Mars, Captain Lee Juno reported one morning. The Soros refugees are having territorial disputes with the Helix colonists. Salmon sighed. Even freed species brought their cultural baggage with them. What's the nature of the dispute? The Soros prefer warmer temperatures and high-gravity environments. The Helix thrive in cold, low-gravity conditions. They're arguing over which zones should be terraformed first. Send in the mediation team, and remind both groups that Mars has enough space for diverse environments. This is exactly the kind of problem we solve through cooperation, not conquest. It was a small example of the daily challenges Earth faced as the center of a new galactic order. Every species had different needs, different customs, different ways of thinking. Making them all work together required patience, understanding, and constant communication. Dr. Kim Tae-woo was working on another aspect of the integration challenge, combining technologies from different species to create something greater than the sum of its parts. The Nexus AI systems are compatible with Helix crystal computing, he explained to his research team. But the Soros organic neural networks operate on completely different principles. We need to find a way to bridge the gap. A young engineer named Park Ji-eun raised her hand. What if we don't try to make them compatible? What if we design a system that allows each technology to operate independently while sharing data through a universal translation protocol? Taewoo smiled. That's exactly the kind of thinking that makes us human. We don't force conformity, we celebrate diversity and find ways to make it work. The result was a hybrid command system that allowed ships crewed by multiple species to function seamlessly. A helix crystal could pilot the ship using crystalline interfaces, while Soros Warrior managed weapons through neural connections, and a Nexus AI coordinated defensive systems through quantum networks, all working together, each using their natural strengths. Meanwhile, the cultural exchange programs were producing unexpected results. Ha Yunsu watched with fascination as a group of former hive mind artists created a collaborative sculpture that would have been impossible in the collective consciousness. Each of you contributed a unique vision, she observed. How does it feel to see your individual work become part of something larger? A being who now called himself Canvas clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. In the collective, we made things together but had no individual pride in creation. Now I can point to this curve and say, I made that while also appreciating what my companions contributed. It's beautiful. The sculpture was a twisted helix of metal and crystal, representing the journey from collective unity to individual diversity to chosen cooperation. It would eventually be displayed in Earth's Museum of Galactic Liberation, a testament to what was possible when beings chose to work together rather than being forced to. But not everyone in the galaxy was happy with these developments. In a secret meeting chamber on the heavily fortified world of Dominion Prime, a group of powerful beings plotted their response to Earth's growing influence. They're destroying everything we built, snarled General Croft, a massive reptilian warrior from the Draken Empire. Entire species are abandoning their military obligations to join this federation of choice. My intelligence networks report that 73 worlds have formally withdrawn from the Galactic Council in the past 6 months, added Counselor Vex, a shadowy figure whose species prefer to remain unidentified. If this continues, we'll lose control of the entire Outer Rim. Supreme Chancellor Mortis, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline matrix, pulsed with dark red light, a sign of anger in his species. The humans have weaponized compassion. It's more effective than any military force we've deployed. How do we fight an enemy that wins by making friends? We show the galaxy what happens when order breaks down, Croft suggested. We identify worlds that have embraced this freedom ideology and demonstrate the chaos that results. No, Mortis said firmly. Direct attacks would only prove the humans' point, that we represent oppression. We need a more subtle approach. Vex leaned forward. What if we infiltrate their system, send agents who pretend to embrace their philosophy, then sabotage from within? The humans are surprisingly effective at detecting deception, Mortis replied. They've developed psychological screening methods that identify individuals who aren't genuinely interested in freedom. No, we need something else. The meeting continued for hours, as the galaxy's remaining authoritarian powers struggled to find response to Earth's peaceful revolution. They didn't yet realize that their very resistance was accelerating their own downfall. Back on Earth, Ambassador Lim Seojun was preparing for his most important mission yet, returning to Nexus Prime not as a spy, but as humanity's official representative to the reforming Galactic Council. Are you sure about this? Commander Salmon asked him. There are still powerful factions that would love to capture or kill you as an example. I'm sure, Seojin replied. We can't spread freedom through force. We have to show them that our way works, even in the heart of their own territory. Dr. Shin Woojin entered the briefing room. I prepared psychological profiles of the remaining council leadership. Most are driven by fear of losing power, fear of chaos, fear of change. If we can address those fears, we might be able to convert some of them. Or we might get killed, Captain Kong Dian added pragmatically. She would be leading Seojin's security detail. I'm not saying we shouldn't go. I'm saying we should go prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. The delegation departed 3 days later. Their ship was one of the captured Helix vessels, modified to include the best technology from all 4 integrated species. The crew was deliberately mixed, humans, Helix, Soros, Nexus, and former Hive Mind members all working together. As they approached Nexus Prime, they were immediately challenged by defense forces. Unidentified vessel. You're entering restricted space. Identify yourself or be destroyed. CO June opened a communication channel. This is Ambassador Lim, CO June of Earth, responding to the Galactic Council's request for formal diplomatic contact. We come in peace and request permission to dock. There was a long pause. Then, permission granted. But be warned, you will be under constant surveillance. Any hostile action will result in immediate termination. Understood. We wouldn't have it any other way. The diplomatic mission to Nexus Prime would test everything humanity had learned about converting enemies into friends. But CO June was confident. After all, they had already accomplished the impossible 4 times. What was one more miracle? As their ship docked at the massive space station, CO June looked out the stars and thought about how far humanity had come. A year ago, they had been desperately defending their home world from extinction. Now, they were changing the entire galaxy. The journey was far from over. But for the first time in galactic history, there was hope that it might end not in domination or destruction, but in genuine cooperation among all sentient species. And that, CO June reflected, was worth fighting for. 5 years later, Ambassador Lim CO June stood in the same council chambers where he had once worked as a translator. But now the chambers were filled with representatives from hundreds of species, all united not by conquest, but by choice. The old Galactic Council had become the new Galactic Federation, and its mission wasn't to control worlds, but to protect the right of all beings to determine their own destiny. The humans taught us something we should have learned long ago, announced a new Federation president, who had once been High Commander Velter before choosing his own path. The strongest civilization is not the one that conquers the most worlds, but the one that frees the most souls. Velter had been one of the hardest conversions. He had resisted for months, clinging to his belief in order through control. But gradually, as he witnessed the joy of liberated species, the creativity of free minds, and the strength of voluntary cooperation, his perspective had shifted. The turning point had come during a visit to Earth, where he had met a young human child who asked him a simple question: why would anyone want to make other people do things they don't want to do? The innocence of the question had shattered his carefully constructed justifications. Children understood instinctively what the galaxy's leaders had forgotten, that forcing others to obey was fundamentally wrong, no matter how orderly it made things appear. Now, Velter led the Federation with the same intensity he had once brought to conquest, but directed toward a worthier goal. We have received formal applications for membership from 17 new species this month, he reported to the Assembly. Each one seeks refuge from authoritarian governments that continue to resist the tide of change. How do we respond to requests for military intervention? Asked a representative from the Crystalline Collective. Some of these species are being actively persecuted for embracing individual freedom. This was the great challenge facing the Federation. How do they spread freedom without becoming conquerors themselves? We respond as we always have, CO June said, standing to address the Assembly. We offer refuge to those who seek it. We share our knowledge with those who ask for it. We demonstrate through our own example that freedom and cooperation create stronger societies than oppression and control. But we do not force change on those who are not ready for it. Even when people are suffering, the Crystalline representative pressed. Even then, CO June replied, the moment we start forcing our way of life on others, even for good reasons, we become no different from the empires we oppose. Freedom must be chosen, not imposed. But we can defend those who have chosen freedom, added Freedom, formerly Admiral Thex. When refugees flee to Federation space, we protect them. When member worlds are attacked for their beliefs, we stand with them. The difference is that we defend the right to choose rather than attacking those who choose differently. It was a delicate balance, and not everyone agreed with it. Some in the Federation argued for more aggressive intervention. Others worried that even defensive actions might lead down a slippery slope toward the very imperialism they had rejected. The debate continued, as it did every day in the Federation chambers. And that, CO June reflected, was exactly how it should be. The old Galactic Council had never debated. It had simply commanded. The Federation's strength came from its willingness to argue, disagree, and find compromise. And in the depths of space, Earth's exploration fleets continued their mission. not to find new world to conquer, but to find new peoples to liberate. The galaxy had learned that there were fates far better than destruction. And sometimes the greatest victory came from showing enemies a better way to live. The age of conquest was over. The age of choice had begun.